Welcome to episode 3 of the Explorer's Guide to Western Australia. In this episode, we're going to have a look at some of the natural attractions that are within about a day's drive from the capital city of Perth. Of course, we can't include everything there is to see in this series, and we're bound to miss some things that are worthwhile checking out. But we hope to introduce you to as many sites and attractions as we have time to cover. We'll start this episode with a look at the coastal town of Rockingham, that's about 50 kilometres south of Perth. Rockingham is a popular day trip for the residents of Perth, but is not always on the list of places to go and see for overseas tourists. We think that should really change, as there's a lot to see and do in this very pretty place. Just north of Rockingham is what's generally called the industrial strip. This is where a lot of heavy industry has been placed in order to make shipping more accessible. Thankfully, the industry really doesn't impact on the attractiveness of Rockingham, and the coastline here is possibly the most attractive you're going to see in the metropolitan area. Just north of Rockingham proper is the huge grain silo operated by CBH. This is as far south as the heavy industry reaches. Even though it can be clearly seen in Rockingham, it isn't really unsightly, and it's interesting, especially for the huge tonnages of grain that are exported from the long jetty every year. There is a beautiful protected beach running south from the grain silo all the way to Rockingham, then on to Palm Beach, Mangles Bay, finally ending at Point Perrin. Churchill Park is a very popular picnic spot, and a number of events are held here during the year. The waters here are protected by Garden Island that lies just off the coast. The island is home to a naval base, and sadly isn't generally accessible to unauthorised people. A long causeway was built to connect the naval base to the mainland, and the causeway itself helps to protect the waters behind Garden Island. This is a very popular place to go boating, and good catches of crabs and fish are taken here each year by recreational anglers. Locals visit Rockingham to enjoy the protected beach, to fish from jetties, and just to sit and have a meal of fish and chips while enjoying the view, or to have a barbecue at one of the many parks dotted along the coast. Dolphins are often seen in the bay, and there's even a charter boat that takes people out to swim with these beautiful intelligent animals. If you want to get a really different view of the whole area, you can skydive down to the beach. This has to be one of the most exciting ways to experience Rockingham. At the end of Mangles Bay is a rocky headland known locally as Point Perrin. This is a very unusual feature on the coast and is a very scenic place. There are walk trails here, so you can walk around the cape and experience both jagged cliffs and peaceful sheltered sandy bays. There are some old military fortifications here that are left over from World War II. Beyond Point Perrin is Shoalwater, another generally protected bay, where Seal Island is a refuge for Australian sea lions. You can join one of the boat tours from Penguin Island and get a really good look at the bay and its islands. Penguin Island sits at the southern end of Shoalwater, and as the name implies, it's home to a colony of little penguins. A lot of other seabirds also call the island home, so if you're into bird photography, we highly recommend you take a camera with you when you visit. From Penguin Island, the coast sweeps away to Safety Bay and Warnbro Sound. This is a very diverse and picturesque section of coast, and is really worthwhile taking the time to go and visit. Part 2, the Swan Valley. The Swan Valley isn't really much of a valley at all. It's actually a rather flat area stretching north from Guildford to Upper Swan. It's fairly close to Perth and is a good alternative for those who don't have the time to head south and explore the Margaret River wine area. There are many things to see and do in the Swan Valley, but the main focus is on food and wine. If you don't have your own transport, then you can join an escorted tour, or you can take a cruise along the Swan River that includes lunch, wine tasting and live entertainment. The Swan Valley is a combination of man-made attractions and natural beauty, and is a very popular destination for both locals and overseas visitors. Heading north from Perth, you'll find Yanchep National Park. The area has been popular with visitors since the 1940s and officially became a national park in 1969. Attractions in the park include exploring Crystal Cave, lunch or drinks at the inn, or relaxing at one of the many picnic areas, or walking around the lake. Sadly, the lake isn't exactly what it once was, and has started to dry up over the past decade or so. At one time, it was a popular place to go boating, but the boats and the small jetties they once sat next to are now all high and dry. The original intent of the park seems to have been more as a place of entertainment than of preservation of nature. Established gardens and stone buildings are part of the landscape, but there is another side to the park. At last count, there were 8 different walk trails within the park, including one coastal walk that takes 3 days to complete. Western grey kangaroos are a common sight along the walk trails and lounging on the manicured lawns of the inn. A koala colony was established in the park, and the breeding program has been so successful that koalas remain one of the park's main attractions today. Koalas are not a native to WA and come from the eastern states. The park is also home to a number of different bird species, including grebes, swans, spoonbills, lapwings, pelicans, cormorants, egrets, kingfishers, parrots, wrens, honeyeaters, and the endangered Carnaby's black cockatoo. The park is an easy day trip from Perth and is one of the areas that's really worth visiting if you've got the time to head up there. A day trip up into the Perth Hills can be very rewarding and will give you an idea of how many West Aussies enjoy their weekends. For locals, there's usually a choice between heading down to the beach or up into the hills, and this has been one of the main ways to enjoy a day out for many generations. There are a number of interesting places to visit in the hills, and it's usual to take along a picnic or barbecue lunch. One of the closest places to Perth City is Lesmurdie Falls. Here you'll get a great view out over the coastal plain and can clearly see the Perth skyline. On a particularly clear day, you might even get a glimpse of the Indian Ocean in the background. A walk trail leads down to the falls from the car park, and facilities available include toilets, seats, tables and shelters. There are a number of dams you can visit in the hills, and although access to the water is prohibited in most of them, they are very picturesque and usually have good picnic facilities, barbecues, and some even have kiosks available where you can buy ice creams, drinks and lunches if you don't want to pack your own food. Kalamunda is one of the hill towns dotted throughout the hills and is worth checking out as it has an excellent museum, shopping opportunities and lots of places to eat and drink. One of the more popular places to visit during spring is Araluen, Araluen is set in a valley, in the hills, in the suburb of Rollestone. It can be accessed from Brookton Highway and Croydon Road. The park is a wonderful place to visit at any time of year, but it's at its very best in springtime, when flowers adorn the park, and it's probably best known for dense plantings of tulips. Picnic and barbecue facilities are available, as well as a restaurant and a gift shop. If you want to take a bit of a longer trip out into the hills, we highly recommend the towns of Tooje and York. Both are wonderful historic towns with lovely old buildings, set in rolling countryside. There are plenty of places to explore, and both have a very laid-back, relaxed atmosphere that is a world away from the bustling city of Perth. In our next and final episode, we're going to have a look at places to visit that are more than just a day trip from Perth, and are worthy of several days' exploration.